The Vivo V50 with stunning design and pro-level portrait photography. Buy now. Velamal feels proud to honor the physical education teachers with 5 cars and 15 lakhs.
Rolling. In Let's Talk, I had one sound designer who was the most irritating because he'd go around and rolling, and then there is that word, action, or cut it, and you feel that the molecules in your body are now going to make you want to sort of sit up and say, I think we're rolling, huh? I'm now nervous. I therefore, when I'm shooting, I say, okay, go guys, go. And I don't even say go, I go whisper, and then I'll go and whisper to the actor and I'll say, when your heart desires, you can start when you feel. So right now,
there's no action.
You can't say the word action. It is the most distracting thing ever for any actor. So you should go there and you should say, sir, or whoever, ma'am, whenever you're ready, we are rolling. There's no hassles. Please start. And also because I take long takes, I don't say action, I don't say cut. I don't use lights. I don't use trolleys. I don't use cranes. It's not dogma, because I think dogma after a while became dogmatic.
Yeah.
But I don't do all this because I want to try and get to some realism, some truth, and some landscape of the human face, as Nestor Almondros said. So that's basically that's the reason I've now got these 10 rules. And it's called System 360. So I'm so happy that I'm talking to a fellow film geek, because I can actually talk about these things without feeling embarrassed about it.
No, it's lovely to meet you, Madhvani, and welcome to Galatta Plus, which is what I should have started.
Yeah.
But then you have this, when the cameraman said rolling, you had this memory. But it's lovely to meet you, and I'm hearing the name Nestor Almondros after so long, because he was François Truffaut's cinematographer, and he did a lot of movies with Robert Benton, I think, later.
Yes.
So,
and also, I keep thinking that if you're going to be lighting, then you might as well beat Storaro, you might as well beat Conrad Hall. Otherwise, please don't take 3 hours and make it look like as if, then you have to beat the greats. So now, from Neerja, I have used no film lights, because I refuse to now compete with people who I can't compete with. So I've had to invent my own system.
What do you do to light up how to illuminate the space?
You use practicals. Like if, for instance, if we were to switch this off, and if my DOP came in, and Kavya was one of my DOPs who's been with us now for a while, we had 4 female DOPs on Waking of a Nation. But then she would sort of put this off, put that on. She'll look at what is real and make this so comfortable that normally what would happen is that my actors also, they're not given marks. They can go wherever they want. I shoot 3 or 4 cameras, and the focus puller is very, very important. So constantly we are clapping for the focus puller, because I don't even rehearse. In life, there is no take 2. In this conversation, which we are presuming is, sort of in a way mimicking life, we are not going to do a take 2 about this conversation. You know your role, I know my role, we're having a conversation, and we are doing it in what I call as a milestoning process. You know your questions. I've internalized what I've been through. And now, obviously it's written because we've written it, but then I allow my actors to hit the milestone, because I'm not interested in life between action and cut. I'm interested in life before action and after cut. Otherwise it's all, so I'm interested in the fact that while you're sitting here, you're not just focusing on me. You are thinking 3 things, and you're worrying about your fingernails, and you're actually thinking about so this is what is giving your eyes an interiority and a whirring, which makes you, in a way, me wanting to know, what is he thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
No, but what do you do when there's a highly logistical piece of cinema to be shot? For example, there's Neerja, and a hijacker has to appear. He has to cross maybe 4 or 5 seats, because that's the extent of where the camera is focusing. The junior artist is sitting there, and she has to give this reaction. And then when he passes, because she has to give the reaction in just before he passes that seat. And I mean, that's a little.
So I call it the dance of the cosmos.
Okay.
And there are ways that you escape from the industrial handcuffs of the processes of filmmaking, because those you don't need to do. You get all of this, but by choreographing it separately. So let's say that if the terrorist he knows what he has to do, Jim and the other 3 people, they know what they're meant to do. Sonam as Neerja knows what she's meant to do. The passengers know what they're meant to do. I don't treat them as junior artists. I know all their names. I've done workshops with
Right.
them. Now what I do is, in a Mike Lee meets Paul Greengrass manner, I put all of this together and I shoot it with four. My DOPs know what to do. The air hostesses know what to do. Now let's get this world and dance, and we'll capture it. And when you capture that energy, that's why when you're watching it, you feel like you're in the plane, as suffocated. I remember one of the reviews said, I felt like raising my hand and saying, can I please go to the bathroom, because I felt like one of the passengers. Now, how do you, therefore, as soon as you begin to do it in the traditional way, it's fake. So this is, it sounds a little technically magical, but I'm doing it all the time. So I'm constantly, what I do is, if it's, let's say it's a 5-minute scene on paper, I'll shoot it maybe over 20 minutes, 30 minutes with different camera positions, and we'll just keep doing it over and over again. And I use, therefore, it'll come back to the script, because what happens is that the actor knows that this is what I'm meant to do. Then I also throw something called googlies. So for instance, if Sonam is meant to sing a Rajesh Khanna song, I'll tell her, you learn these two Rajesh Khanna, but I won't tell her when, and it's not on paper. But so it's there on paper, my writers know it's on paper, but I won't give her that page. And I'll then go and whisper to Jim and I'll say, let's do it now. And then the 150 passengers don't know, but one of them will come to me later and say, sir, I was so upset that I was going to get up and sing for her, sir, because, she shouldn't do this to her. And that's what's giving you the reality, because I've brought an entire bunch of people with me to make something which is the third passenger in the 8th row is as much in it as the lead actor. So there's no background, there's only foreground.
Right.
Sorry,
Now-
is this sounding a little like
No,
as
it's
if...
interesting because
Yeah.
I'm wondering also because of the vagaries of the.
I'm taking this time from you because you're one of the rare people I can speak to about this geekiness of filmmaking.
Actually, it's lovely because now I don't have to go with the questions I prepared, because this seems even more interesting. Before we jump into the
Waking of a Nation, coming on Sony Live on March 7th.
Yeah, which is coming on Sony Live on March 7th. Before we come to that, I'm just curious about one last thing, which is, what do you do if you want to shoot a scene and you don't use lights, you don't use complicated jibs and trolleys and nothing of the sort, but it's an old partition style house and there's not much lights there. You can't just switch on modern electrical appliances there. What do you do?
Well, it's easy. Because it means that when you go to the location, my DOP is approving the location based on the natural light, and we're shooting in the window that you're meant to be shooting in. So sometimes what happens is, if this street even has the shaft of light that is only coming between 1 to 1:30, and if I have a scene, let's say, of General Dyer walking into that street, and I want to shoot it with that light because I'm very, very worried about light. I'm not going to make it look raw. I'm not going to make it look bad. And even in Arya, there's no lights, there's no... I hate it. How can an actor act to a thermocol? You can't tell an actor, "Acha, aapka look kidhar hai? हाँ इधर ये यहाँ देखना ये
Look at the cutter.
Look at, you can't say that. And then for another actor to be off camera saying, I was such a generous actor, he gave his lines also, off the camera. I said, no, that's not the way to make it. The two actors need to be here and we need to shoot this. And you please interact, because acting is reacting and interacting. It is not you being over here and talking to a cutter and saying that that's how you act.
Yeah.
That's wrong. So when I'm shooting with natural light, I'm very worried, and my DOP, I'm very worried about the image and the edibility of the image. But I'm not interested in making the image look fake. And so with my DOPs, they're constantly telling me, this is your window. Then if I have to shoot a 5-page scene in that half an hour, then I have to submit to that. I have to make sure, because I will protect the image and my DOP. So I'm not making it, cannot be against craft. The long shot is the long shot, the close-up is the close-up, the camera movement is, everything is handheld. The camera movement is, so when you're watching the film, you'll feel like it's if, it feels like he's done shot breakdown, etc. But there is no, the point of the camera is to point at the actor.
Right.
Not actually for the actor to follow the it's basically they've got it backwards. Hello, I'm here in service of the actor. The camera should follow the actor. The actor cannot come in and say, oh, now there's going to be a crane shot and now there's going to be a trolley and where you want me to walk, sir? No, sir. You'll walk where you want and I will follow you.
Is that why you don't use trolleys?
I don't use any of that because obviously if I'm doing advertising, then I do all of that. But in a feature or in a series, I don't use any of that, no.
Now, you're a very, very feted advertising
Yes.
filmmaker. You've won all kinds of awards that probably have 75 cabinets in your house. You've made series like Arya. You've made films like Let's Talk, which
Yes.
we just said. I saw it in Chennai. I think 2003 or 4. I forget
Right.
which year. And Nirja and all that. As a director, how do you approach ad films versus films versus a series?
So a lot of my riyaz comes from advertising.
Okay.
Because if I'm shooting with, like now, if I'm inventing a system, which I'm calling System 360, I started inventing it.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, System 360, because then you can go wherever you want, okay? So, and it's a formulated, so even the directors who come and are, sort of doing some of the co-directors on Arya, they will be indoctrinated into the system. And that system has laws. One of the things I learned in advertising is, like, what do you say? What do you say? Who do you say it to? How do you say? But the other thing which I learned in advertising is how should I make you feel? And therefore, constantly my job is to try and see how I can predict the feeling. And obviously, that's my job. I may fail at it, but is to try and see how you can feel from what I make. Now, the advertising has taught me how to be in the business of feelings. And in that respect, whether I'm making an ad or a movie or a series, that does not change.
That does not change.
Yeah.
Okay.
And therefore, when I went and did a course on Indian aesthetics on the Rasa theory, I was interested in trying to figure how do I reach out to you. So I'm constantly with Let's Talk, because I was not interested in plot, and I was trying to escape plot. And then I realized that, okay, I can't escape the handcuffs of plot. And if I'm now going to have to practice the anxiety is not money or whatever, that's always there, but the anxiety is that people will not allow me to practice what my life's calling is. And therefore, I said, okay, I better now start doing it in a way in which I have to follow the laws, again, the indoctrinations of a westernized way of telling a story, which I've now had to do. And therefore, I don't see any difference between, I'm using the same laws and the same rules in all these three things. And I'm cross-fertilizing and actually learning from all of these, because eventually what I'm interested in is you. And eventually what I'm interested in is reaching out to you.
Yeah.
I'm not, Let's Talk, I think we made for ourselves. And it reached out. After that, I've now realized if I'm going to have to need some money to make stuff, I better do it in, like, otherwise I'm a great believer in Mike Leigh and Mike Leigh's system. So I've seen all his, 20 to 24 movies.
He's made one just now.
He's made one just now.
Yeah.
I know, Hard Truths. And
with the same actor,
with the same
Marianne
actress.
Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, exactly, from Secrets and Lies.
Yeah.
When I first saw Secrets and Lies in Australia, that effect of that movie, I was silent for 2 hours after seeing it. I couldn't talk because I couldn't believe that he was a director who was giving me reality and truth. It's work that I aspire to, where you're just feeling, how did they capture this?
Right.
And so he has a system, and then I had to formulate my own system because I had to work within a studio system. He does not work within that system. I'm working within a studio. I need to have a script, and my scriptwriters are extremely good. In this one, there's Shantanu Srivastav and Shatrajit Nath, we've been working at it for 3 years, because eventually I need to put it down on paper to tell people this is what it is. Then only will I get actual purchase.
Yeah.
But then thereafter, I then now do my own Mike Leigh meets Paul Greengrass meets whatever,
So what is your response to this theory that people don't want the truth? Our audiences already see too much of harsh truths. They come to the cinemas to escape the
Right.
truth. How do you respond to that?
When I'd gone for a holiday with my friend to Bhutan many years ago, And there were just the two of us. And one night we started discussing truth. And we didn't talk to each other for the rest of the trip. So the problem with truth is that the definition of that is so, like we know, like from Rashomon upwards and downwards. Okay, so, but in my head, I'm trying to see how you can try and capture a moment which feels unobserved, which doesn't feel like as if you are, and it feels like there is an inner whirring of the mind, which is something which is mysterious, that is not actually been told to you, to, like, it feels spontaneous and it feels like as if it's in the moment. And I feel that therefore you can do that whether you're doing filmy masala commercial stuff or whether you're doing an arty stuff. You can do it in both. And we have seen actors, whether it's Mr. Bachchan or Dilip Kumar, or you can see that they're bringing truth to that moment. And so I don't think that you need to qualify that truth in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what is the truth about Waking of a Nation? Because yes, there is a true event in the fact that the Jallianwala Bagh massacre did happen.
Yes.
General Dyer was responsible physically for orchestrating that massacre. At that point.
Yes.
There were many people that died. But what is, like, beyond that, the story of Waking of a Nation? Is there fiction or is it all truth that was hidden so far?
So it's inspired by true events. We are not saying that this is a historical. There is entire aisles in bookshops which are called historical fiction. So that itself is
So this is historical fiction?
This is inspired by, because yes, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre did happen. Yes, the Hunter Commission was there. But we have a story of 4 friends. And our main character, Kantilal Sani, is not based on any real person. So therefore, I'm constantly trying to figure out what I call as faction, which is fact meets fiction.
You term everything, you give everything a name. Series 3.
This is what System 360.
System 360. Yeah,
so
faction.
I'll tell you what happened. We were in New York, 4 or 5 of us, and Baman was part of that. And so I went to New York to try and, I said, guys, this is about 3-4 years ago. I said, guys, I have a teacher who I know. Okay. Yeah. So I said, I have a teacher called Malia Scotch Marmo. She teaches writing in Columbia University. Let's all of us go. We'll spend 7 days with her and we'll just do a refresher course on the Western laws of filmmaking. And the group that we have is called Articulation. Okay, the WhatsApp group. And the thing is that I like articulating it, provided that rigor does not become rigor mortis.
Right.
Because I am right here. Of course, I want to pass it on. I want to tell you what the system is. I want to do all of this. And therefore, it begins to sound a little pakao, and it begins to feel like as if I'm giving gyan, which I don't mean to. And it's coming from experience. But at the same time, I do want to do it so that it's codified. Everything that we have seen in Indian aesthetics and art and dance and theatre and Natya Shastra, or even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, is codified. If you don't codify, you can't pass it on. I'm just using this opportunity as a godsend because I can then speak about all of this to you, okay?
Yeah.
And all the viewers can then get bored and I don't care. I'm just speaking to you about this because it's
That's
so
fine.
rare
to
have a conversation where we're just like, talking generally about what excites us. At least, I'm hoping it excites you also.
Yeah, it is exciting.
So I don't mean to make it feel like as if it is like, sort of boring or like as if it's theoretical, but I do like to, if my job is to have a vision and pass it on, if I don't do that, then I'm not doing my job. So I have 2 jobs as a director. 1, have a vision. 2, inspire. Because I don't know how to act, I don't know how to do music, I don't know how to edit, I don't know how to light. That means one thing I do know is how to get the best out of you.
Yeah.
And therefore, my only job is to say, guys, this is what we are making. The Waking of a Nation, for example, is a story about colonialism. It's about racism. It does happen in the backdrop of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. But what I'm saying right now is that you knew about the massacre because there have been many movies being made about the massacre. But what you don't know about is the conspiracy, which was that it was a pre-planned, orchestrated, systemic sort of to put us down. It was a master plan to put us down.
And this is something that you found out where?
So this is something which is Partly through research, because it's out there. If you just type in, let's say a word of a man called Hansraj,
Okay.
which is there in episode 1, he exists on Google and he's a police informer. But if you begin to read and you look at the archives and you look at what is out there in the public domain, you will find that there is a lot of this kind of whispering which is there. And I just took that and I said, okay, this seems like it's exciting. And the fact that the Hunter Commission, to me, was a whitewash, okay, because the British put forth the Hunter Commission, which was called the Punjab Disorders Committee, run by a man called Lord Hunter. Ironically, therefore, I mean, the fact that if I was writing fiction, I would never call him Hunter.
Yeah.
And I would never call somebody Dyer and O'Dwyer. But this is what the reality of it is. That, Punjab's governor at that time was Lieutenant Governor Michael O'Dwyer. And so what we are saying is that, and you know about in the first 10 minutes, I reveal it all, because what they say, and this is all received wisdom, what they say is if you're doing a crime show, it's like, and this is about a crime, right? It's about a whodunit, but I've revealed who did it, right? Yeah. But if you're doing a thriller, which this is actually, in a thriller, you need to know what happens next.
Yeah.
What is keeping you hooked is, oh man, you've told me, I've revealed everything to you in episode 1. Okay, now what's going to keep you going is what's going to happen next. So therefore, to come back to what is fiction, yes, we are not even for a moment saying that this is history. We are saying this is actually inspired by 2 true events, and then we have done our own version of that, because this is a story about 4 friends caught up in that time.
Right. So, would you...
I have Sony Liv nodding from there saying, well done, Ram.
Well done. Yes. Like, let's say in an alternate universe, would you be able to condense this information and make, let's say, a 2.5-hour movie?
I never thought about it. I think that movies, sort of have a different... I've always thought, like, why is it that Let's Talk, which is really about 2 people talking, is that cinema? Is that theatre? Was that TV? What was that? Because obviously it was released on the big screen.
Right.
And I've always been thinking in my head, what makes for cinema versus what makes for a show versus what... And then I was told, and I'm here trying to figure this out, maybe you can tell me what you feel, rather than it just becoming about me and this conversation about me giving all this...
The conversation is about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I also want to know about you, and I want to tell you about an experience that I had. But what makes for cinema? Because obviously, just a medium, whether it's this or this, does not make a mobile screen or a big screen does not make for cinema, right? Something else makes that cinematic. And I'm here trying to figure out, and it can't be, oh, acha photography hai, ya kuch beautiful sunrise shot hai, to bada screen pe dikhna chahiye. So what makes for that is something which I haven't yet... Do you know what makes for it?
I don't know. This is a theory, but I think cinema is something... See, ultimately, let's take, you mentioned Bresson. Almost everybody in today's generation, that out of curiosity, let's say film students or just somebody who wants to say, okay, what's the big fuss about Bresson? So they've all seen Bresson either on a TV set or on a phone or whatever it is after downloading a torrent, right?
Correct.
So they've never seen Bresson
on the big screen. Yeah.
So similarly, I've had the fortune, because when I grew up, theaters used to still screen older films on the big screen. So I've seen McKenna's Gold.
And I've seen it 9 times.
Yeah, so I've seen,
I can't believe you've seen McKenna's Gold.
Yeah, so,
it was an adult movie.
Yeah. So, luckily, people at the gates were like, you have a ticket, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I saw Enter the Dragon. When I walked in, I painted a mustache on my face so that the usher would not catch me. And I actually painted a black mustache on my face. And I walked in and I said, great, I'm now in. And then as I sat down, that guy put a torch on my face and said, you're underage, get out. But McKenna's Gold, I was able to see, but that's great. Yes, so tell me. Yeah.
No, so the thing is, the David Lean films, Sound of Music, all these... See, I don't like saying classics or whatever, because that's a word I don't really believe
Even
in.
I don't believe in.
So it's like, it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So, but all these big screen films, shot on Panavision or VistaVision or 70mm or whatever it is at that point, I've actually seen them projected, and I've seen the audience gasp when certain, like for instance, when the camera just lands on Julia Andrews' face, like, because you're seeing the Alps, and you're floating and you're floating and you're floating, and then you come down and suddenly there's a woman out there, and oh my God, there's like,
and the hills are alive.
The hills are alive. So it's like, it's something you haven't seen, because Indian films at that point were typically very, at that point you had the NFDC produced Benegal films or whatever it is, the Govind Nilani films, Pankaj, all those people are making the movies. And then on the other hand, you had your regular commercial films, and with the rare exception of a Sholay or something, nothing was really big, thought through. In Sholay, for example, there's like, Amjad raises his hands. And
this is exactly how I work, by the way. Huh?
Okay, right.
So if there is a problem, I'll just tell the actor, can you do that again, please? And then you'll do it again.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that. So Amjad raises his
hands. I'm not going to say, take two. All right, everybody. And okay, can you take a half-an-hour break? Because then I've disturbed you.
Yeah.
I've disturbed you. Now, with just him saying, can you do it again? You became comfortable. And you did it again till I disturbed you by saying, take two, let's do this.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
That's your process.
Yeah. So anyway, so now tell me.
No, I was just saying, in that, Amjad raises his hands, brings down his hands, and then you cut to Sanjeev Kumar in the present day, because that's a flashback. And then, Ye Haath Mujhe De De Thakur. He brings down the thing, and then you cut to Sanjeev in the present day, and then there's the trolley you hate so much, and
but not when it's done by the masters. They knew when these people do it, they know how to do it. Yeah.
There's Dwarka Divecha doing the camera work, and he's pulling back, and suddenly the audience is realizing this thing. Or even when I remember this shot in Sholay, which is a very curious shot, which I took time for me to process, which is that there's Jaya Bachchan, and she's happy that Amitabh is coming back. What Ramesh Sippy does is, the door opens because she's been watching from that door on the first floor, and she runs all the way across the balcony, then all the way to another place, then the first flight of stairs and second flight of stairs. She runs and stops before him, and then suddenly she realizes that Sanjeev Kumar is standing there. Oh my God, my father-in-law is there. And then she covers her head and then she walks back up, and that tells me two things. One is her excitement of the thing, and which you're following only her. But the second thing is also her desolation, because just to come down, she has to run from here to there, there to there, there to here, there to here. That space is telling you about how alone she is on the top floor, and how much distance she has to cover to come in contact with another person. So I think these sort of things you register really, truly only on the big screen, because the space allows you to think. But what is cinema? I don't know, because today everything, reels, you have everything. So am I going to be a purist and say, something that's a reel is because it's giving me entertainment? Am I going to dismiss it? But is it cinema the way the Lumiere brothers saw it? I don't know. It's like, these are all...
So therefore, right now, what I'll show you right now is, I think that the only immersion that you can have currently, without this age of distraction that we're living in, is virtual reality.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to show you, because we've done a 5-minute virtual reality film, because now I believe that this is the only way that you can experience what you said that you experienced in the theatre in that zamana where there was no like people walking the, whether it was the usher or the server or, none of those people were walking around.
And one more thing that in that, I don't like saying era because it dates me even older than I am, but that time, I think, because for us entertainment was so scarce, because there was not this and that and this and that and everything, like there was 500 things, I think we took cinema more seriously. I think buying a ticket, going and sitting in a theatre, and not booking a ticket online, but actually standing in line and buying a ticket either for advance booking or current booking.
And getting disappointed if it was houseful.
If it was houseful, I think all that contributed to the fact that there is something that I put in a lot of effort to come and see. So people took that effort to watch it. Whereas now, because it's effortless, right? You book a ticket, you click a button, everything's become so easy. You order an Uber, you don't have to, so when the effort to
Sort of-
see something or do something is easier.
the romantic in you.
Is that the romantic in me? I don't know. Yeah, I am a romantic. So the thing is, there's no denying that, because I think there's a certain like difference in that in that way. But let's come back to Waking of a Nation.
So I'll tell you first how the thing began, which is the anecdote that I wanted to tell you about.
Right.
So I was going for my first trip to London, and obviously in that age, when you got a visa itself, you went to the mandir, huh? Because visa mila to aap mandir jate ho ke bhai, acha visa mil gaya, you know. So I was going with my mother because my brother stayed in New York, and so we were going via London, and so we were on the flight, and we were in economy class, so there's 3, 4, and 3, and when the flight took off, then my mother said, "Can you come across the aisle to meet me?" So I went forward in economy class, and then the curtain was closed of what I now know is called the galley, having done Nirja. But because it was closed, I felt a little odd. I said, "No, I can't go." You know, now of course you do say, "Excuse me," etc. But at that time I was a little intimidated. So the curtain was closed, and that front row where there are 4 seats there, and there's a little gap in the front row. So I asked a white man there, I said, "I just want to go across, meet my mother. Can I go across?" And he looked at me and he said, "Sit down, you brown bastard." And
Wow.
yeah, and I actually went and sat down shivering.
This is when, roughly?
This will now give away my age.
No, but
no,
like
but it was many years ago.
80s maybe?
Yeah,
Ah,
exactly.
yeah.
So, and it was my first trip abroad, and I actually was shaking and shivering, and I sat down, and my mother's over there saying, "Why are you not coming?" And I'll say, "No, I'll come later." This is actually my reply. The Waking of a Nation is the reply to that man many years later, to say, "Why did you say this to me? Why did you think that there was a white man's superiority about skin, prejudice, color?" And there is a scene in the show which you'll get to where we've been taught how to eat with a fork and knife rather than with your hand. And so these are all the things that preoccupied me. And so I said, okay, this is my one way of speaking about what I went through in the plane that many years ago. So this is the reason why. So it's not really, of course it is about the massacre, but everybody knows the massacre, but it's about the investigation of why the massacre happened, what happened 3-4 days after, what happened 7 days later. And it's really about the investigation as to what was the reason that was this orchestrated. And apart from the massacre and the commission, it's really about colonialism and about the fact that they did this to us.
So do you think that System 360 and the things that have developed since are also a kind of response to why should a Westerner tell me how to make a movie?
Well, I think that though I also am in a way a classicist, but I'm also a bit of a rebel when it comes to being told what to do. And I feel that if you're going to do that, then I have to beat David Lean, and I can't beat David Lean. Okay, I've therefore...
By the way, David Lean is not really considered one of the masters today, by today's generation.
Sad, right?
Sad, right?
Yeah. I mean, I yet remember the reviews that he got for
Ryan's
daughter.
Yeah.
And they said to him, Pauline Kael and everybody. So, and I mean, everybody knows the story, but I'll just say it because it's so sad. 16 critics, or 12 of them, got him to a lunch in New York. And then they said, "Why did you make Ryan's Daughter? Why don't you go and make Brief Encounter again?"
Yeah.
And he said, so David Lean says, "You'll only be happy when I make something in black and white and in 16 millimeter. And the critics, I think Pauline Kael was part of it, says, "Well, Mr. Lean, we'll give you color."
Yeah.
He didn't make a single film
For 14 years.
14 years
Yeah.
till Passage to India.
Yeah.
And now having read, because I have the best collection of film books in India. Okay, so I've read, I'm like one of those guys who reads everything about the making of movies.
Yeah.
No, but the reason that I find that when you do that, then you really have to use that craft in a way in which it's like beyond what the masters did. So if I was to do a scene of Mrs. Bachchan running down that house, I would yet do it giving you a similar feeling, but I'd yet do it with the loneliness and all that, but I may not do it using a trolley or a crane. I would do it in a way in which there is a certain documentary kind of feeling to it. But that does not mean that my craft is not in place. Like my long shot is my long shot, my close-up is my close-up, my camera movement is my camera movement. I'm just using them without it being compared to the formalization of that system.
So you don't typically believe that ideally there should be a key light, a fill light, and a rim light. That kind of triangular thing is not your bag.
Well, not that I don't believe in it. It is there. It just happens without it being lit. Obviously, you need, those are certain laws that are there.
Because you need my face to be lit. You
Yeah,
need, like,
exactly.
probably
And there is something called good lighting,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and there is dramatic lighting, and there is soft lighting, and there is all of that. And you need to know all of that, and you need to have used all of it. And I've done that and been there. And now I'm finding that I'm sort of no longer wanting to do it so that it feels like it's lit, because, like I said, I can't beat Apocalypse Now and I can't beat Storaro.
Right. Arya, on the surface, is about crime and drugs and all that. But you said what really drew it to you was the dysfunctions within the joint family,
Right.
the family ties and the dysfunctions there. That's what really drew you to that show. So similarly, this is on the surface a show that has an Indian trying to prove that the Jallianwala Bagh massacre was actually a planned conspiracy. But what really drew you to the show was that incident on the plane?
Yes, number one. Number two, the idea that the character's journey, Kantilal Sani played very well by Taruk Raina, and he also sings the 4 Kabir songs which are there in it. It's really about a man who goes from wearing a suit to wearing a dhoti. And that is his arc.
Oh,
and,
that's lovely. Yeah.
And therefore he begins to be, what does it mean to be Indian? And therefore the reason that we called it The Waking of a Nation is because the idea is that it's also the waking of the lead character, and the fact that he is somebody who is beginning to understand, and I'm interested in what does it mean to be Indian? What does it mean if Edward Said says Orientalism? What does it mean to be Oriental? What does it mean to be Eastern? And so these are all fascinating. Why is it that our art looked at, Indian miniature art, does not look at, let's say, composition in that way, which is realistic composition? When the Horizon 9 is like that.
Yeah.
We're looking at composition without that handcuffs of space.
Yeah, without the dimensionality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how is it that they came and colonized our eyes, and now we don't know what Indian miniature, they escaped realism in a way and that is, therefore, what happened was that this viewpoint, which David Hockney calls the Western art viewpoint, is the viewpoint of a paralyzed cyclops. Okay. And we didn't have a paralyzed cyclops way of looking at things. We looked at it all over. We had a God's point of view of looking at things. And therefore, all of this troubles me. Why did we lose our eyes, our clothing, our language? And so this is a reaction to all of that. Yeah. And therefore, it is, like I said, about the massacre and about the commission, but it's really about how India became India. Yeah.
So there is I was Googling up today's generation for some other thing, and one of the things that I found out was a lot of people either are not interested in history or are interested in history in a very questioning way, or a critical way, or if it connects to something that is still valid, like a civil rights movement or something like that. That's still kind of happening. Otherwise, they don't really care much about what happened. The Battle of Panipat was fought, something. That
Correct.
really doesn't interest them.
Correct.
Assuming that's true,
Right.
because I don't want to get into whether or not the generation is like that. That's not the point.
Yeah.
But assuming that that's true, how do you sell something like this to a younger audience?
Well, first of all, in advertising, what they say is that one way to make sure that your target, I do a lot of the Airtel ads, and I'm talking to the youth all the time, from Harik Friends or Ryota till today. And so one way is sometimes by showing your target audience inside the work that you do. So this is a story about 4 youth,
Right.
three friends and this woman, and it's really about what they go through. And then it is also a story about self-respect and humiliation.
Right.
And therefore, which is what we've all felt. You felt it, we've all felt it.
Yeah.
And so it's really a story about against this backdrop, but it's a personal story, and therefore I think that what they will connect with is the idea about four friends and what they go through, because it's exactly what everybody is going through today in terms of whether your friend is going through whatever that they're going through in their lives, and this was their lives, which in some ways the soul of it is similar.
Yeah. You're one of the few filmmakers who has openly said that you read reviews. As opposed to a lot of people that say, no, reviews don't matter, nobody knows anything. But why do you read reviews? Why do you put yourself through that? And why do you think they matter?
So I obviously, March 7th, which is when it's coming on Sony Live, The Waking of a Nation. I'm preparing myself for March 7th. I will be reading the reviews. When somebody says what they say, it stays with you, and it like wounds you in a way. And sometimes you do learn from it, but sometimes you wonder, why did they have to say it in that way?
That tone.
Yeah, or those particular words. And there are some critics whose words, like I know by heart, okay, that they said this. And I said, but this really didn't seem to be fair about you can please speak about the work, that's what your job is, go ahead. But I think that emotionally it hassles me when there are certain things that are spoken in a certain way.
Right.
And so I have to make myself immune, and I'm working on it, so that if on March 7th, when I will read those reviews, I want to sort of because see, I've gone out there, I've made the work, it's my most personal work for Amita and me at Madhvani Films, my co-producers Amita Madhvani, and for the whole team. This is something that we've worked now 5 years on it. It doesn't mean that you don't, please go ahead and say what you want to say, and
right.
That's absolutely fair, and that is part of the learning process. I read reviews also to learn. And so sometimes when I'm reading, let's say A.O. Scott in the New York Times, and in the past when I'm reading whoever it was, whether it's Pauline Kael or whoever, I'm reading to try and figure out what did they make of that film. And therefore, there are some critics that I hugely respect. And so I will be reading their reviews. And if they don't like it, because I'm wanting to reach out, right? I'm here to reach out to you. If I can't reach out, then I feel that my voice did not reach out, in which case now I have to figure, what do I do to that voice?
Yeah.
And do I adapt it? Do I reinvent it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Were they right? Were they wrong? All of these things is only natural, right, for you to go through, because you respect the people that you read, or at least a lot of them I do respect. And so therefore I'm interested in what they have to say about my voice. And I believe that they're also there to actually help me progress in this career. They're not out there to actually put me down, but sometimes the language that is used makes me feel like as if I'm being put down.
But I think that's part of the way, social media has made all of us crueler people, I think, more direct. I genuinely believe this. It's like
But you're not like that.
because I tended to actually go in the opposite direction, because I say it doesn't work instead of saying it stinks or something like that.
Exactly.
That's all. It's like
yeah.
it doesn't.
It's
so
a language thing, right?
But
yeah,
a
which
lot
is
of
not
people,
taking away from the way that
the
you're criticizing
evaluation.
it. Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of people tell me I've gone soft simply because I don't say it stinks, because that's what they want. And so it's a I don't think it's a battle you can win.
Yeah.
But from the time of Let's Talk
Right.
till Waking of a Nation, do you think, in your estimation, Ram Madhvani has gone more mainstream?
Yes.
Okay.
No question about it.
Right.
There are various kinds of successes. There's personal success, critical success, commercial success, mass success. But then, and I've received sometimes all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've also, you get used to it. You say, oh wow, everybody liked it. It was critically liked and commercially liked, and people liked it, and it was personally it was great, and it all worked out. So I've also found that I genuinely am interested in reaching out to the audience. So I want to make things for the family. I have to tell you that once Suraj Barjatia came up to me after I'd got the Filmfare Award for Nirja, and I didn't know him, but obviously, we've seen his work. And he came up and he said, Ramji, and I said, Ji, Surajji, and he said, मैंने नीरजा 2 बार देखी, बहुत कम लोग हैं जो फैमिली के लिए पिक्चर बनाते हैं. आप प्लीज़ फैमिली के लिए पिक्चर बनाते रहना. I took that personally. Okay, I thought it was a blessing. I thought it was a great thing that he came to me and he said, make movies for the family. So I want to make my stuff which has got value systems that reach out in the living rooms of people when Dada, Dadi, everybody's in that room. And because TVs are not in bedrooms, they're in living rooms. And so I want to make work that reaches out. When I'm at a wedding in Jaipur or Lucknow or with my family, then they come out and they say they've seen the work and they liked it. I like that. And therefore, now the problem with the word mainstream is that somehow it feels like as if that's a word that should not be used, and that seems like it is a word that is, you're like, I've been dissed for that word, but
Really?
actually,
I just think
I like it.
It's a style. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mode to reach people.
Yeah, and also while I'm doing that, guess what? It's allowing me to speak about the Bhagavad Gita in Arya. It's allowing me to do Kabir in Waking of a Nation. It's allowing me to speak spiritually, philosophically. Like Patricia Highsmith, when she's talking about why she writes thrillers, she's saying that genre, guess what? They now allow me to make my most personal work. If I'm worried about family like The Godfather, as far as we're concerned, it's not really about sort of the mafia and whatever. It's about power. It's about a father-son. And so in Arya, it was about the Bhagavad Gita and what is, whether are you a mother first, or are you going to be a daughter first, or are you going to be a wife? And therefore, there are conversations of dharma and karma which are happening as part of that whole, sort of thing which I'm interested in, which is that that's an ever-changing notion of what should एक माँ अपने बच्चों के लिए कुछ भी कर सकती है, लेकिन वो माँ है, पहले वो माँ है. Similarly, in the Waking of a Nation, what we're really looking at over here is, by the end, we understand why did this happen? Why is humanity like this? And I don't mean to make it preachy or anything, so I do it through thematic songs, which is a great way to speak in Hindi cinema. And I like songs, and I want to do more and more lip sync songs. So I want to reach out. I like McKenna's Gold, Godfather, all mainstream, right? Anything that Steven Spielberg, Scorsese is doing, it's all mainstream. Yado Ki Barat, which I've also seen many, many times, it's all mainstream work which affects you. I like the mainstream. I want to make more and more mainstream stuff. But guess what? I'm making commercial work in an experimental way.
Yeah.
I'm making commercial work, but with lots of things in it which could be called non-mainstream. And I'm trying to straddle both. I'm trying to tightrope walk what I call as massagy and classagy. And if I can, and sometimes I've been able to succeed, sometimes I've not been able to succeed. But when I succeed that, if I can tightrope being international and Indian, mass and class, if I can do everything and be in the middle of this and reach out and yet make the critic and the public like me, then I think I've succeeded.
That's fantastic. I hope you find success and good reviews.
And good reviews.
Yeah. With the
or you'll
Waking of a
find me
Nation.
bleeding at the corner, like. So, but no, don't worry.
By an unused trolley.
I should have used you. I should have used you.
But it was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and it's something which it is in a way a milestone in my life. I do not mean to say this out of flattery. The fact that you've actually come to interview and that we are speaking like this, it's always been there as part of my head. I've said, one day this will happen, and it is something which I manifested. So I'm very happy.
So great to meet you as well.
Okay,
thank you so much. Yeah.
All right.
The Vivo V50 with stunning design and pro-level portrait photography. Buy now. Velamal feels proud to honor the physical education teachers with 5 cars and 15 lakhs.